back to another episode of Bridge the Gap. I am Don.
And I'm Don.
So, today we got two things that we need to talk about. It's mainly what people trust the most when it comes down to technology. That is security, and that is numbers. So, if someone tells you their Bitcoin is sitting in an offline hardware wallet, you'd probably assume that money is about as safe as it possibly could be.
Safer than gold.
Hell yeah, safer than gold. And Nvidia is selling hundreds of billions of dollars worth of AI infrastructure. Investors would naturally think, like, damn, the AI demand is fucking humongous. But some things have been happening recently that we just can't trust Nvidia for. And we will have some questions about you with a couple of the offline wallets that we're going to be talking about. First, let's get into exactly what's going on with Nvidia. So right now, investors are a little bit scared with Nvidia and a little thing called circular financing. So I wanted to present to you guys a little short video really quickly right here, just to kind of demonstrate what we got going on and how this is affecting AI.
So if you can get up and running in 6 months,
Can you turn it
a
up?
retrofit format versus a greenfield format, which is starting from scratch, which takes up to 2 years, that's a much better proposition.
All these data centers need power. The growth in utility costs is outpacing inflation.
Utility companies have done really well, especially ones that are providing energy to data centers. Construction stocks have done well.
But building fast isn't always built to last.
You don't just build a data center, switch it on, forget about it and make money. You have to keep on investing to keep that technology working. Otherwise, it will quickly become useless to the people you want to sell it to.
That's actually where I wanted to stop that one at. Now, that wasn't really too much going on there, guys. I do have this little analogy that I'm going to be reading out to you guys here pretty soon. But one of the things that I really wanted you guys to understand that the circular deals going on within AI is very, what would be the word? It's very phantom-like. This demand is being driven by these AI companies essentially investing into their own customers, and that's what leads to circular financing. You give your own customers loans and money that they should pay back to you relatively, correct? But since these companies are already mainly struggling to afford to get these items from companies like Nvidia, this leads to something a little bit called vendor financing. Now, I actually have an article here pulled up, Don, that will give us a little bit of a chart that can demonstrate how this actually works.
Okay.
So, as you can see right here, Microsoft invested more than $13 billion in OpenAI over the years, with the largest investment being $10 billion. That came in early 2023. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we can also see how Google here is coming into Anthropic, right? And Amazon as well, it's a little off screen right now, is also coming in here to fund Anthropic. So later that year, Amazon and Alphabet here both invested, which by the way, if nobody knows, Alphabet is just Google. Yeah. They both invested about $6 billion collectively into OpenAI's rival Anthropic. And if we can also see here, for example, Nvidia is coming over here to CoreWeave, and with it's Amazon and Nvidia both have an overlap in investing in Oracle. And then you can start to see how Microsoft lending this company money, right, is going to essentially be them investing in that. Because if I am correct, if we use Microsoft Edge, I can't for the life of me remember what their AI model is called right now. But I do know
That's Copilot.
Some of that Copilot. Copilot is actually based a lot off of OpenAI. Some of the earlier models, as far as I'm aware. But I need to get to this big picture and explain to you guys how vendor financing and circular financing actually works. I have an analogy that I've written up to sort of explain this to you guys. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask Don here, like, just hearing how circular financing and vendor financing sort of works. What might be any of your concerns with companies such as Nvidia moving forward doing these types of things?
This sounds to me a lot like what happens in defense contracting, where the government will say, hey, we need this thing to happen, and companies will spend as much money as they need to get it done, and then on top of that as much money, they overcharge the government for it, and the government is willing to pay for it because the government can just print money. And then what that does is keep inflation rising and rising and rising, and there's no way that the government could actually be able to pay how much money they're asking for a certain thing without printing off a bunch of money and making that money less valuable. And I think it all just comes down to hurting regular people in the end. And like that first video you said, these power companies, these power plants, these heating and air conditioning companies, and these water companies, they're doing great. But the prices are going up for consumers. And it's just these huge companies basically playing hot potato with something that snowballs. Every time you touch it and pass it to the next person, you add a little bit more to it, and it just becomes this big ball of nonsense that doesn't seemingly affect any companies because they're still growing, but your average everyday person is going to start feeling it in the rising prices of everything around them.
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, I've already heard that a lot of these AI companies, where they're building data centers nearby, they're actually going door to door and requesting that the people who live in these local communities, that they allow them to draw power from their house, and in turn they would pay their power bills.
Not only that, but I don't know if you saw it, these AI companies are suggesting putting mini data centers in your backyard as a way to offset the cost of maintaining a data center. If you know, when it comes to cooling and electricity, if you could just put a tiny data center in everyone's house, like on the side, it would be a lot cheaper because you could just use the house's existing infrastructure and kind of spread the load, to say. So they've already been doing stuff like that.
Okay, and so I was able to pull up this beautiful analogy from Reddit here that actually perfectly explains how circular financing works. Just dragged it over here right now. Let's just go ahead and give it a little quick read. So think of NVIDIA as a property manager of a brand new strip mall. He collects rent from 5 new tenants who are just starting out their business. Each business is taking on loans to fund their equipment, advertisement, etc. to get their business up and running. However, they don't think they will start to turn a profit until at least 2030. NVIDIA, wanting to succeed, sees that these tenants risk default if they can't turn a profit. NVIDIA, having a bunch in savings, invests in their tenants' business to help get them off the ground, hoping to improve the tenants' odds of succeeding so they can be a source of rent revenue in the future. But how long can a property manager afford to subsidize their rent? What happens if one company defaults? How much does NVIDIA lose between the rent and the investment? And I just love this analogy. I feel like anybody can really understand this. So pretty much, guys, what's happening is that NVIDIA is investing in these AI startups, right? And so these companies need a lot of money. NVIDIA is not really looking to own these companies, but rather loan them the money in hopes that, hey, you are an AI startup. You need us. You need what we provide to every other AI company. So essentially, this initial funding or ongoing funding is supposed to get them off the ground and running until they can become profitable, to where they are now feeding back into NVIDIA's business. The risk here falls that if the company doesn't succeed, Nvidia has just invested meaningless money into a company that's not going to improve its stock, it's not going to improve its odds, and quite frankly, the money that the company was spending on Nvidia's products before it even defaulted or went bankrupt or whatever you want to call it was Nvidia's own money. So that's where the circular financing comes in. So now that we have this big picture of how it works, right? Don, obviously, just for me reading this, just for me explaining it, I mean, you know the risk here, we all know the risk here, and we all know that this is just phantom demand, that this is just artificially inflating the numbers so that they can boost up their stock prices. Now, Nvidia, like not many other companies, actually does have a lot of free cash flow. But how much of this free cash flow do they want to burn on investments that may not return anything?
Even if the ship is sinking, you got to keep pumping money into it to feed it, and that's really scary because we don't know where this is all going to go. Obviously, AI is here. AI is here to stay. It's been helping us with things like cybersecurity and anything, really. But, I mean, it seems like this is crazier in a numbers game and how it's affecting the whole entire world. This is crazier than the space race, than just pumping a bunch of money into something for no reason so that we could say we're the biggest.
See, and the problem is right now, I mean, if we're being honest here, in terms of demand and need, Nvidia is probably the most needed company right now. In terms of what they're capable of producing for these companies.
I mean, just on a hardware level for these data centers? Is that what you're talking about?
Not just that, but I'm talking more on the financial side, right?
Okay.
So like, for example, Nvidia, for the longest, man, they were known for selling GPUs. They were the it fucking guy. But recently, Nvidia itself said that it's developing models that involve some AI cloud partners, to where they're focusing more on aligning the economics through revenue sharing and what they like to call credit support. But they're trying to do this more for like capital intensive AI infrastructure to get built, right? So essentially, my opinion is Nvidia sees this as, we are the big rig right now, right? They may have the best cash flow to be investing in this, and the way they see it is, hey, we may not earn nothing now from these companies, or like, hey, we may not use the infrastructure that we're building now, but it'll be used at some point.
I have a random question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who owns these data centers? If the bubble bursts, when the bubble bursts, and we need to scale back or companies will go bankrupt, and these huge data centers are just a monstrosity of a walking liability in a physical sense. Are there companies that own the physical infrastructure that are just going to be used as kind of a, not a scapegoat, but a way for big companies who run the software to just pull out of the physical infrastructure when they need to, and they're not even worried about spending too much money, because as soon as they need to pull back, they can, and they've developed the software, which is the important part.
So, in this note that somebody wrote, I didn't read this part, but I do want you to give thought to this.
Okay.
And this goes a little bit into what you said, but they pose the question: what happens if OpenAI and Anthropic don't IPO for trillions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars? How long will private equity continue to fund these operations? What happens when these companies can't afford to pay back the tens of billions in dollars in contracts to these companies that are investing in them? And this is essentially where I want to say the fragility of the market is showing. Obviously, your everyday consumer, me and you, we don't want a fucking data center in our backyard. We don't want a data center in our fucking town. We don't want the impact on the environment. We don't want the impact on our power bill. But the question comes back to it is, if these companies go belly up, if they bust, essentially, what happens? Will Nvidia, will Meta, will Amazon, will Alphabet continue to fund their operations even after years of showing that they're not making money? Even after years of showing that they're going to default on the contracts that they had with these investment companies to begin with? And let's just talk about OpenAI, for example.
And do you think it's hubris at this point? Like, a company becomes so big so quickly, they think they could never fail. And I feel like people aren't reading enough history books. I mean, every single company and every single nation, maybe with the exception of China, who knows, will fall at some point. And so, I don't know, maybe these companies, they think they're invincible in a financial sense, that, you know, the government will just bail them out because they've got their hands in the pants of all these politicians, which is true. But, I mean, what happens when that fails? What happens to America at that point? Are we thinking about the ramifications of an entire nation and its peoples, and we're just too distracted to think that we have any power, or to think that these things actually affect everyday citizens and it could threaten the values that Americans claim to have?
I have a question for you.
What's up?
Can something look like a huge organic demand while financing is happening underneath the surface? That's the question, because it later comes into that no matter how you see it, Nvidia, every single one of these companies that are public, right, that is listed on the NASDAQ, can they continue funding these companies and still have a little, like, organic demand?
Dude, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know. Nothing is fucking tangible anymore. I mean, if you want to talk about the stock market when it first opened, and the company that sold the most physical products of something could give you a straight up answer as to how many oranges they're selling, or how many computers they're selling, or whatever. And it's easy to tell what companies are doing good and what companies are not. Now we don't know. We're just going based off the words of these companies and fudging their numbers, and nothing is physical. Everything is hidden. They're not giving out the locations of their data centers. They're keeping those things private. They're not giving us the real numbers. I feel like we could all be being lied to about the real numbers, and nobody would have any way of knowing because they're trying to keep it in such secrecy, and there's nothing tangible about the product to begin with. And it's kind of scary if you're investing in these types of things.
You know, one of the things is right now, I remember that there was a chip scarcity a few years ago. Prices skyrocketed. It wasn't fueled. The demand stayed the same, but the supply was less, right? or the supply was scarce.
Okay.
And right now, I feel like I'm seeing something similar, because all these data centers need this excessive amount of RAM. And my question is, man, is that I'm concerned if we saw a chip shortage not too long ago, and now we're going out here and saying,
Is that what that was?
And that was even driven by
I couldn't find
commercial
it,
entities.
so I didn't even.
That was
do the
purely
copy.
off consumer demand.
I couldn't find
Your
the any better
everyday
ones.
person.
You ask me.
But now we're
Because
seeing
I still had this.
this demand being driven in the RAM market by commercial demand. And my concern becomes, when will we hit the wall of scarcity? And then none of these companies will be willing to, because right now they're probably paying $5,000, for one RAM unit. Actually, there's actually a company very recently who canceled all of their orders because Nvidia increased the price by over $1,300. So all of the consumer orders that were priced back at $3,700 were canceled because they can no longer fulfill the orders at the previous rate that these customers bought them for.
Now, I'm not a super genius when it comes to like physical computer architecture, but is there not a way that we could be utilizing older computers and salvaging the RAM, putting it together in some way that makes it usable on newer computers so that we don't have to just keep buying new RAM all the time and keep fighting these AI companies at their price level?
I think what you're asking for here is more of us developing a recycling process for old RAM, and not necessarily repurposing it, but breaking it down to reuse the materials for newer RAM. Is that what you're trying to say here?
And not necessarily materials, but as a consumer, right? If I've got 5 old laptops and RAM prices are skyrocketing due to AI data centers, and I can't even afford to have a machine that's going to run Windows 11, is it possible for me to just shove all my old RAM sticks together in a way, as a consumer who doesn't know too much about computers, in a way that lets me keep up with the demands of modern operating systems and programs and software that's required to do most jobs nowadays and to be a functioning member of society?
And don't quote me on this, but from my understanding is, for example, when it comes down to your laptop, that's not going to be as easy to do. It might be possible in a actual tower, like your desktop, for example. But even then, there's still some limitations between the speed of your RAM, how many lanes that your motherboard has to hold that RAM. If your motherboard only has two lanes to hold, 2 sticks of RAM, then I fear not, whether you have 4 laptops or not, and they're all just each 8 gigabyte RAM sticks, you're not gonna end up having that 32 gigabytes of RAM in your computer because just a hardware limitation on the motherboard alone.
Okay.
But
I just feel like at some point there's going to be this consumer rise into more control over their machines, not out of choice, but out of sheer necessity because the prices keep rising.
Well, see, I'm also glad that you brought this up, because to me it seems like a bubble, right? They want to keep increasing the prices because the demand for it from all these AI startups is so extremely high. Not only that, but every single major conglomerate across the globe is starting to partner with companies like Nvidia. I mean, Nvidia is literally creating partnerships with other chip manufacturers, for example, and hardware developers Um, Not only that, but the reason why I feel like this is a bubble that will eventually pop is look at how much cash they're throwing at it and look at how AI has been used outside of, you know, the medical research or precision medicine, you know, advancements in pharmaceutical areas. When we take away AI and block out that entire area of good, I believe there's a lot more bad. For example, X, not too long ago, they allowed AI generated images with Grok. What did people decide to do with it? Generate fucking child porn. Um, I don't think the consumer sees enough use from AI to justify what they're doing with the data centers now. I mean, even the most earliest models of AI, we weren't hearing about them building all these data centers.
You know what's fucking crazy is
They didn't need
when
these to operate.
when AI first came around, we were promised the exact opposite. We were promised that AI would take menial jobs away, and with that increased production and performance, we were gonna use that to just build a better society. We wouldn't dump like 10 times more money into these AI systems and screw the consumers. And I don't know why so many people are still buying it. Like, I don't know why so many people in the tech industry are passionate about this on a personal level and still believing that this is going to be good for humanity, because obviously it's fucking not. Even if we've made advances in technology, in absolutely no way on a personal level should anybody be celebrating the way that it's being used, the way that these companies are working. And it all has to do with money. AI itself is not evil. It's ridiculous.
No, I'm gonna move into the last part for the Nvidia story specifically here, but let's use a little bit more tech related. So, Don, I want you to imagine that you manufacture expensive servers, right? And that I want to buy $1 billion worth of your servers, but I don't have $1 billion. So you give me financing, right? And I use that financing to buy your servers. You record a sale, and I now have your equipment. But, so on paper, you sold $1 billion worth of equipment, right? But the real question comes into, would I have bought your equipment without your financing?
Oh, what's that?
And right here, we actually have that Nvidia is trying to say that they aren't using circular financing schemes. And they actually sent a memo out to Wall Street analysts over the past weekend that they're not engaged in that. And we actually have two famed short sellers, Jim Chanos and Michael Burry.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right here.
right. Nobody's buying this.
Yeah. Can you hear this, by the way?
That is even quieter than the first quiet video.
Yeah, it seemed really low to me.
I mean, at least on your OBS, you could make sure that your input volume is turned up enough, or you could fix it in post. But I'll do my best to listen.
Okay, I turned it up, so hopefully it'll be louder.
You can turn the captions on too.
NVIDIA invest in that still aren't making money, or will take them a while to make money. NVIDIA says, look, we're not the main holder of these companies, right? We're an investor in them. They're on their way to profitability at some point. It's basically what they're saying in their note. As far as the build out, I mean, look, Mark Zuckerberg himself.
Look, it's always it's always great
I mean, look, Mark's.
when a company is accused of something and they try to pawn the blame off, like, oh, we're not the main ones. Like that lets you know that they know that they're the problem.
Well, you know, and that's the thing, man, is for these corporations that are public, everything revolves around money. Nvidia, it's one of those things.
Hold on,
where,
sorry. I see in the third paragraph it says NVIDIA wrote a 7-page document. Can we find at least the header of that document?
Let's see.
This is just a report on the document, but maybe we could see like.
It's a private one.
Okay. All right. Oh well. I mean, who writes a 7-page memo about how you're not guilty about something? That seems, like, at that point, we know something's off.
They were pretty much refuting a lot of things that this company, Barron's, was claiming.
I won't drink the whole thing, but.
Drink the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, let's go like this.
Yeah, let's just keep moving, I suppose.
I did see that really key number there, that $5 trillion AI chip maker. Is that what they're valued at now?
I mean, it makes
I thought it was
sense.
like $2 trillion. Holy fuck, that's insane.
Money just keeps being more obscure and obscure these days. Who really knows?
This is another interesting point. You see what I just highlighted right here?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's the literal definition of circular financing, now that I think about it. It has nothing to do with just pumping money into something that's not making a profit, but everything to do with pumping money into something that's going to be pumping money into you. You're like literally a circle jerk.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and keep you guys updated with this story moving forward. We will let you know if there's anything changing over there with NVIDIA and their circular financing. I really hope that they don't really reap the rewards of what they're doing here. They are pretty much a huge factor in driving AI boom. If you guys are also not aware, NVIDIA was just recently marked as the highest company. I think it overtook Apple for a little bit. What the hell? Yeah, looks like they're still in that battle with Apple right now. 4.95 trillion, 4.77 trillion. I think even breaking that threshold of $5 trillion as a works for your company is insane. But anyway, guys, let us know what you guys think about this story down in the bottom in the comments section. Please leave a like or a dislike. Please continue to let us know what you guys think of the story.
Did they bring back the dislike? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I love it.
And how we can improve. We always try to strive to get the story out to you as soon as possible. Please keep in mind that we meet once a week for these, and we try to pump out a few of them at a time. So we do appreciate you guys being patient with us over these past 2 weeks.